Good morning to Dr. Hafiz and fellow friends. My name is Chi Jing Shan. My lecture number is PC251502. So today I would like to present our lecture note, which is nutrient changes. The first one is cooking unclogs flavor, but at what cost? So cooking is a transformative process which make the food safer, more digestible, and unclog ingredient flavors and aromas. So, however, the very heat that creates these benefits will also degrade the vital nutrients within our ingredients. So that every meal we prepare will involve a series of trade-off between the taste, safety, and nutrition. So heat is the engine of transformation in the kitchen where we cook for several critical reasons like safety, digestibility, palatability, and preservation. The first one, safety, is to destroy the pathogenic bacteria like salmonella and natural toxin in the kidney beans, making the food safe to eat. Then the second one is digestibility, is to break down the tough structure like cellulose in vegetable and collagen in meat. So it will making the nutrients more accessible to our bodies. So for palatability, it is to improve the flavor, texture, and appearance. So the heat will triggers the chemical reaction, then create the complex aromas and taste we craft. So the last one is preservation, is to destroy the enzyme that cause spoilage, extending the life of the food. And we should understand the three pathway of heat, where the first one is convection, the movement which involves the movement of the fuel when the heat is transferred by the circulation or of hot air or liquid. So the example is roasting in an oven or boiling the potato in water. The second one is radiation, where it is a direct energy wave method. So the heat will radiate from a source and is absorbed by the food surface. And then the example is boiling the fish or toasting the bread. So the last one is conduction, which is the direct contact method where the heat travels from source through the pan and then directly into the food. So the example is searing a steak in a hot pan. Now I will explain for the chemistry of deliciousness. When the heat is applied, the food undergoes profound chemical changes that create flavor, color, and texture. The first one is Maillard reaction. The most important of browning reaction which occur between the amino acid and sugar at high temperature and then creating hundreds of new aroma and flavor compounds. So this is the savory crust on bread and the sear of meat. Second one, caramelization, is the browning of the sugar itself. So when heated, the sugar molecule break down and reform into new compound which are rich, nutty, and slightly bitter flavor. And then is dextrinization. It is the breakdown of long starch change into shorter, sweeter tasting change called dextrin, which also contribute to browning. So it is a thing of toasted bread. The last one is protein coagulation, is the protein unwind and link together, causing the food become firm or solid. So the example is cooked egg. So this is the spectrum of cooking methods, where it can be broadly categorized by the medium used to transfer heat. So each category will offers a unique set of outcome for texture, flavor, and nutrient retention. The first one is moist heat cooking method, and it use water, steam, or stock. So the example are boiling, shimmering, poaching, steaming, stewing, and braising. So the key outcome for this method is tender, moist food, and then gentle cooking. The second one is dry heat. It normally use hot air or radiant heat. So the example is roasting, baking, grilling, or barbecuing. And then the key outcome is brown surfaces, crisp texture, and intense the flavor of development. The last one is frying, which use the hot fat or oil. So it is sauteing, stir frying, shallow frying, or deep frying. So the key outcome is very rapid cooking, crisp crust, and rich flavor. So these are the graph data who shows significant leaching of water-soluble nutrients, particularly vitamin C and B vitamins. So when we use moist heat cooking method like broiling, shimmering, and poaching, it will lead to different consequences for the food. So the first one is boiling. When we boil the food, it will cause the greater loss of nutrients, while when we steam the food, it will preserve the most nutrient as the food has minimal contact with the water. And then it is the evidence from broccoli. When we boil the broccoli, it will lead to the most significant loss of vitamin C, soluble proteins, and sugar. And when we steam the broccoli, it will retain the level of this nutrient almost on par with the raw broccoli. So for dry heat cooking method, like grilling or barbecuing, we'll use the intense radiant heat to cook food quickly, creating a desirable char and flavor. However, this high heat will also produce potentially harmful compounds like heterocyclic amines, HCA, or polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAH. So HCA form when amino acid in meat will react at high temperature, and it will be found on the surface of well done or charred meat, fish, and poultry. But when the pH will form, when the fat drips onto hot coals or flames, so this will result in the smoke carries PAH up to the surface of the food. So both HCA and PAH will cause cancerous tumors in animal study. So the key factor for this method is the temperature is critical. An increase from 200 degrees Celsius to 250 degrees Celsius will triple the HCA content. So these are the playbook for safer grilling. The first one, we should marinate using lemon juice, herbs, and spices like garlic, onion, pepper, and paprika, which act as a barrier, and their antioxidants compound will inhibit the HAPA or pH formation by up to 70%. Secondly, we should cook at lower temperatures, and avoid the direct contact between the flames and food. Thirdly, we should oftenly turn the food to prevent any of the one side becoming overly charred and building up high concentration of HCA. And then we should remove excess fat from the meat before grilling to reduce the amount that can drip and create PAH-laden smoke. And lastly, we should not serve blackened or heavily charred portion of food. And now, how the hot oil creates the perfect crust. It is by using frying method, which is a process of cooking food by immersing it in hot oil, which acts as an extremely efficient heat transfer medium. So, the process is like moisture transfer. As the food hits the hot oil, the water at the surface intensely vaporized, then creating a steam barrier that push outwards. And then secondly, we should crust formation. This rapid water loss dehydrates the surface, then creating a characteristic crisp crust. Thirdly, is the fat transfer. As the water leaves, the small amount of oil are absorbed into the food surface and then adding flavor and richness. The last one is interior cooking. The heat is conducted from the crust to the center of the food, then cooking it through. So the balance of these forces determines the final texture and crispiness of the food. So what happens when we reheat the oil? Degradation will happen. So these are the degradation pathway. The first one is hydrolysis. The moisture from the food will react with the oil, then creating a free fatty acid FFA, which can create off flavors and lower the oil smoke point. And then secondly is oxidation. The oxygen from the air will attack the oil, then creating a volatile compound which affecting the flavor and then oxidize the polymer. And lastly, polymerization. At high temperature, the oil molecule will link together, forming large polymers, and this will increase the oil viscosity, making it thick and scruffy, and then darken its color and cause foaming. So these are the causative agent, and the change effect. These are the new compound forms. So these changes means that reuse the oil cooked differently and can impart undesirable flavors and compounds to the food. So why the golden brown is the gold? Because of the acrylamide. Acrylamide is the chemical that can form in some starchy food like potatoes during the high temperature cooking processes like frying, baking, or roasting. So for this, time and temperature are key because the amount of acrylamide form is directly related to how long and how hot the food is cooked. So when the temperature is high, it will lead to exponentially faster acrylamide formation. When we cook for a longer time, it will increase the total acrylamide. So this data show that frying at 190 degrees Celsius for 5 minutes will produce over 3 times more acrylamide than frying at 170 degrees Celsius for the same duration. So the color of the final product is a strong visual indicator of its acrylamide content. So now is the guiding principle for every meals. Firstly, we should minimize the water contact to preserve water-soluble vitamins. So we should prefer steaming over boiling. And now we should control our heat, as the high heat will create flavors but also risk the nutrient loss and the formation of harmful compounds. So we should control our heat to reduce the nutrient loss. Then we should shorten the cooking time. Like when we cut the vegetable into uniform pieces, we should be more quicker. And then we should embrace the marinade by using acidic and antioxidant rich to protect the food and inhibit the formation of HCA and PAH. Then we should aim for golden brown but not brown to minimize the acrylamide formation. And lastly, we should use fresh oil and avoid repeatedly using the frying oil as it will degrade and can transfer negative quality to our food. So this is the culinary toolkit, choosing the right method for the job. Every cooking method represents a choice with distinct consequences for nutrition, flavor, and health. So this is the summary that helps you to navigate the key trade-off. So for example, steaming method, the nutrition retention for this method is excellent, but the flavor is low. So this method will minimize the risk and consider one of the healthiest method. For boiling method, the nutrition retention is poor because it is water soluble, and then the flavor also low. And the health consideration for this method is minimal risk but significant nutrient loss into the water. For roasting or baking, the nutrition retention and flavor is good and excellent, and it will form acrylamide in starchy food at high temperature. Then for grilling method, the nutrition retention is good and the flavor also excellent. The high potential for HCA or PAH formation if not managed carefully. Then is still frying method. The nutrition retention is very good, and then the flavor is good also. The health consideration for this method is quick cook time will preserve nutrition and minimal added fat. And then the last one is deep frying. The nutrition retention only fair, but the flavor is excellent. So this method will add significant fat and calories and the risk of degraded oil and acrylamide. So now, in conclusion, cooking is not just an art, but it is an applied science. So by understanding the fundamental principles of how the heat transforms food, we will move beyond simply following recipe. And we will gain the ability to make intentional, informed decisions in the kitchen. And this knowledge all allows us to adapt techniques, solve the problem, and consistently create meals that are not only delicious, but are also designed to maximize the nourishment they provide. The goal is to cook with intelligence and purpose by balancing the science of health with the art of flavor. So at last, this is the key data at glance, where it is the nutrition retention in broccoli, and this show acrylamide formation, and this graph will show the chemical changes in frying oil. Thank you.